without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys
Didn't win. I don't know, Jack. It's a big decision.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem with saying space.
Pittsburgh at Buffalo.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought I was right. So anyway,
Yeah, Mac, you're really interested in these playoffs.
so
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Can do anything better than you. Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Anything you can be, I can be greater. Sooner or later, I'm greater than you.
No, you're
good
not.
morning and welcome to the Mac and Jack Debate Show here every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Today we have a couple special guests in for you. The Philly sports guy, Pags, and also Dave McGlovin, both from Coast to Coast, as they do their show every Monday through Friday from 12 to 2 p.m., if I'm not mistaken, right? 2 hours you guys go for. And Jay's been on with us before, and of course, Pags comes on with us quite a few times every Saturday to debate some topics, and Doc is on vacation or whatever he's doing. So we brought these two fine gentlemen in here that get along so well so that we can talk and debate a little bit. So, guys, good morning to you. Good morning to the people listening out there. Now we'll be tuning in. There was a story that nobody was talking about. Me and Jack started talking about it on social media. And ESPN wasn't even talking about that. And it was Vince McMahon, as he's been accused of sexual assault and sexual trafficking by a young lady that worked for him. That he actually had her set up with other wrestlers and sent photos of her around. And Brock Lesnar was one of the ones named. That's how he got him signed, supposedly. This is the allegations anyway, that she was like his private whatever there. I don't even call her what she was supposed to be there. He was sort of like a pimp, is what Vince McMahon was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So all these allegations are coming out, guys. And here's a kind of a theory I got. And tell me if I'm crazy or not. I've been called it before. But WWE, we know, is a lot of, not really real. It's like a fantasy thing. There's a lot of different fake stories going in about women and men being married, they're not married, all this good stuff. And sort of like Disneyland, right? All your dreams can come true in wrestling. And Vince McMahon is the king of Disneyland, right? He's the one that sets everybody up. So first of all, guys, I think that there's going to be a lot more coming out. Now, this is, of course, I'm just assuming this. It's not, I'm saying that this is going to happen. I'm thinking that a lot of time in these cases, and I'm going to go to Jay first. Jay, a lot of time in these cases, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We might see a lot of women coming out against Vince McMahon.
Yeah, absolutely. Where there's one cockroach, there's always a million more that you haven't found yet. I think Deshaun Watson case has been a prime example of how many more women can come out, right? I think you had it right. They use a technical word called trafficking, right? But, this all started out, quote unquote, by the court documents, and what she's alleging is that, Vince was in her, he had a penthouse in her building, and she was down on her luck, and she was looking for a job, and this guy hooked her up with Vince, and Vince gave her a job. As a matter of fact, he created a position, brings her in, and then offers her basically sex for job advancement. Now, I don't know, I've been around a time or two, and I've talked to a lot of people up in corporate America, and I know a lot of this stuff goes on, right? You can't tell me that people aren't, swapping sexual favors for advancement, even though we don't call it that, right? So my thing about it is they call it trafficking, but really it's just corporate pimping. That's all it is. You can call it what she had every opportunity when Vince approached her the first time and said, hey, You know, here's do this for me. I'm gonna do this for you. She could have turned it down. She could have walked away and said, you know, I'm gonna get me a lawyer. I'm gonna file some charges on this guy. I'm gonna sue him for all these, all the things that he's propositioning to me. But she didn't. She went along with it. So, and I wonder how many other women, and again, Vince did. I don't want to justify what Vince did because it's all ugliness. It's all gross. It's all disgusting. And when you get into the details of all the things that Vince did, it's disgusting as hell. But there is a little bit of ownership that she could have walked away at the very beginning of it all and went straight to her lawyer and had a really nice probably lawsuit against the guy. But I'm sure there's other women. There's got to be other women, right?
Well, stop right there, Jay Pags. She did file a lawsuit. She filed a lawsuit back in 2022, and it was $3 million. It was a $3 million NDA that she signed, and Vince stopped paying on it. He paid $1 million, and that was it. So this is the reason why she's going back to court, and this is why she's asking permission to sue this guy again. So your take on it, Pags? Let's throw in there that maybe some wrestlers besides Brock Lesnar might be involved with that. Maybe some wrestlers start retiring now. They want to get out from underneath this because there may be some allegations against them too. What do you think?
Honestly, I feel like where there's smoke, there's fire. And I got to imagine, I mean, not for nothing, had Vince McMahon came and asked me to be one of the stewards to one of the lady wrestlers, as long as it wasn't, the Fabulous Moolah, you know what I mean, who wasn't necessarily the prettiest wrestler in the world, I probably would have agreed. Just like I'm sure as these women agreed originally, they probably got paid handsomely to do this, and then want to cry foul after the fact. Because ultimately, if she was really Brock Lesnar's steward at the time, or concubine, even whatever she wanted to be named as, $3 million was all needed to shut her up. I mean, no offense, but that's small. That
it really is.
WWE is a monster company. So he paid $1 million, and then he forgot to pay the other $2 million. Now she wants to reopen it up. You know what? I expect that she's looking for like $5 million, or she spent $1 million already. You know what I mean? So it's, I find this very odd. I think that a lot of that has happened. I agree that there's probably tons of stuff, but I have a feeling, same thing with wrestling as you would think with the NFL. Vince McMahon knows where all the bodies are buried, and he ain't going to talk. And neither is anybody else in that company. That she's going to probably get some more money, and everything's going to go away.
Guys,
Jack, before you start, okay? So let's stay with the assumption. Daniel Snyder, Jeffrey Epstein, these things do happen. We know they happen. And to me, right now, the two guys underneath me are kind of blaming the woman here in a way. I mean, listen, you're put in a position with a guy that has a lot of power, has a lot of money, and can ruin you for the rest of your life. And here she is stepping forward and saying, "This happened to me." And like with a lot of women, they're gonna say, "Well, maybe she wanted this, or maybe she could have stopped it. Maybe she could have." I'm not saying they're wrong. But isn't that kind of a bad angle to take here when she certainly would be the victim if it's true?
I don't know if it's. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and again, I'm sort of not glorifying what he did, but at the same time, like I told you a minute ago, she had a choice, though, Jack. She chose to get the big money, and all of a sudden, once she gets the big money, now she wants to go back the other way.
She's intimidated. You get intimidated when you're in the presence of Vince McMahon. You essentially,
what's he gonna do? He's gonna kill her? He didn't have a gun to her head. He was just waiting for her.
When Vince McMahon brings someone into the business, sometimes he does it with no strings attached, very coy. And once they're in the business, they're kind of hooked in a way. They're kind of caught in the middle. Then he makes these demands. They're not sure where it's going. It's flat out wrong. There's a book that came out earlier this year called Ringmasters. Coincidentally, I read the book. Coincidentally, I read the whole book. And it's not only women. Shawn Michaels, imagine this, was asked to do sexual favors when he was a young wrestler coming up, and he ran away. Okay, basically from that. He didn't do it. He managed to hold it off, but he mentioned how intimidating that whole thing was. And this is a woman. I'll agree with you on this point. She signed a confidential agreement for $3 million. She didn't have to do that. She could have gone to authorities in the first place. I agree with you guys on that. But it shows you the arrogance of Vince McMahon. $3 million, it's tip money to him. I mean, it's pennies to him. It's less than pennies to the WWE, yet he wouldn't pay the last $2 million. It's as if he wanted to be spiteful with this woman. Well, you didn't do what I wanted to, just the idea you made me sign a confidential agreement. Now I'm not going to give you all the money. It just shows you how arrogant Vince McMahon is, because if he paid the full $3 million, she couldn't take this to court without repercussions. Remember what happened to Jerry Jones not that long ago? This woman came out, but his attorneys enforced the confidential agreement, so we don't hear about it anymore.
Right. Very good point. Good points all around. Listen, so let's get to the question then. I mean, will Vince McMahon go to jail for this? We'll start with Pac. Do you think he ends up in jail because of this?
Nope. Scot-free. I think he'll have to pay some money, but he ain't going to jail. This is all going to be civil. This isn't going to be criminal.
Yeah.
I
agree with Pags. I agree with Pags. You know, you got $1 billion. You're going to have the best attorneys. They're going to work it out. And he will have to pay some money. You know, and he knows he's going to have to pay some. I think he knew he was going to have to pay some money when he didn't pay the $2 million on the non-disclosure. You know, he knew that. I think he knew that already in advance, right? I mean, Vince is a smart guy. You don't get $1 billion and have a company like that if you're not smart. So I absolutely think that he knew that he was going to pay a little bit of money, but nah, he's going to have a great lawyer team. He'll be fine.
Guys, there's a next fact.
Jack. Let me ask you now. Jeffrey Epstein had the best lawyers. Daniel Snyder had the best lawyers. All these multimillionaires have great lawyers. Donald Trump, great lawyers. But yet, because what happens is now the other people start jumping on this bandwagon, whether it's true or not, could be, might not be. And then all these other charges start coming down the road, or all these other allegations start coming down the road, and they can't hold it off. So, Jack, how about you? Do you think he will get away with this?
Well, Mac, I was going to answer the question, and you cut me off to make your point, which is good. And you mentioned Donald Trump. Donald Trump's best friend is Vince McMahon. If Donald Trump becomes president, he'd pardon Vince McMahon if Vince McMahon somehow wound up in jail. Vince McMahon isn't going to wind up in jail. The wealth he has these power lawyers. It'll wind up being a money thing. The bigger question, can Vince McMahon wage a comeback in the future? Can he find his way back into a position of power with the WWE? That's a bigger question, because Vince McMahon, till the day he dies, is going to want to get back on top. This isn't a Daniel Snyder case where there's a commissioner to get rid of him, and then the Daniel Snyder can never be known in the NFL again. Vince McMahon commands such power. At the end of the day, this might just be a big setback that he can recover from.
Interesting.
I wouldn't even be surprised. I mean, I just read an article. This is the first time actually hearing of this. So I just read a quick article. I wouldn't be surprised if he did it purposely for the attention.
No.
I tell you, all publicity is good publicity, and there's nobody who knows that better than Vince McMahon. It sounds ridiculous. Why wouldn't you pay? It's $3 million. Why wouldn't you just pay it? It's almost like he wanted to get back in the news.
Yeah,
like that by doing this, you're going to create. He literally put himself in the Me Too movement. That's what he did. This is part of that Me Too movement. So if you're going to get people riled up about it, all of a sudden you're going to have a new fan base just coming in to watch, because haters are fans who are more loyal than your fans.
And he really is the perfect heel. Like Vince McMahon is the perfect heel.
But
Well,
Jay,
let me ask you guys this.
Jay, let me ask. No, I'm asking. But Jay, he's been forced out. TKO, he's out, and they brought in The Rock, and they brought the he had to resign, but The Rock is now in place there. So they're what they're doing is they're swapping him out for somebody that's more clean cut. That's more of the American dream. I that's what I think, Jeff.
The Rock joined the board before Vince McMahon resigned.
But
Vince
he
McMahon
listen, he
planning
knew.
to resign when The Rock joined.
Jack, they knew this
Not
was
for
coming
nothing.
down the
Not
road.
for nothing. The The Rock and Vince McMahon are interchangeable. They are the same person. So I don't want to hear it that by putting The Rock in place, Vince McMahon is still in charge, and that's what's honest and real.
Vince McMahon's daughter would take over basically full control, and his son-in-law Triple H is in charge of creative control. I mean, they're major power brokers in the WWE, and
they're puppets. They're puppets controlled by Vince McMahon.
Supposedly
You don't think Vince McMahon's not in control of that damn company? He might have people in there that legally can hold the spot down, but I promise you, he's pulling the damn strings.
Sort of like Daniel Snyder. I agree with that 100%. So what do you think the family thinks? I mean, his wife has been with him for years. Jack brought up his daughter, son-in-law, the family, maybe the family of this girl. I mean, this affects all them too. So what do you think?
Everybody knew. Everybody knew.
Yeah.
There is no hiding this. Everybody knew. And I got to imagine, I'll be 100% honest, I got to imagine where this woman is going, there's another woman in her place doing the exact same type of jobs that she was doing. No doubt in my mind. In fact, there's probably a number of them who are getting paid very well to do that job. Because they want, this is just like acting. You know, everybody wanted the Harry Feinberg or whatever his name was, Harvey Feinstein, when he was, it's the same type of position. If you want to get somewhere in this industry, sometimes you're going to have to do some nefarious stuff. And unfortunately, now that whole thing came out, do you think that's all stopped in Hollywood? Do you think it's all stopped in wrestling? Not a chance. Yeah. Not a chance.
Shane
Vince became this person, right? Vince has been like this for decades. So you know his wife, his daughter, they all know who Vince is. They all know who Vince is behind the scenes type stuff. So you got to believe, and I wouldn't be surprised if the wife was doing some things and it's behind closed doors. You don't have that kind of fun.
But Epstein did end up in jail.
Epstein did a whole. He went over the line. There's some lines in the sand, and Epstein was like, you know what? I'm gonna jump over this line. I'm gonna jump over this line. I'm gonna jump over this line. Eventually, it became too much, and we deal with age. Vince isn't dealing with the age factor, or maybe he is. I don't know that. But it sounds like everybody at least is of consensual age. So that's how he's getting away with some of this.
Yeah, I mean,
listen, you want to work here and you want to do this job. This is what this job requires. And as long as you're not 17 years old, then it's all legal-esque, under the guise of legal.
I mean, once you start bringing the minors into it, it really does kind of change the game there.
It definitely did. It definitely did. So let's get to the next question. Bill Belichick hasn't got a job yet. It's kind of surprising to me, to a lot of people, not just me, that he hasn't got a job yet. A lot of people thought that maybe he was waiting for Philadelphia to fire Sirianni, or maybe for maybe the Dallas Cowboy thing to happen. But Atlanta said no to him. And right now he's like a man without a country. He's a coach without a team. So what is the main reason you think Bill Belichick is not a coach right now, or will not coach this year? What do you think, Jay?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading when he did the second interview that Arthur Blank was giving him the job, and he just hadn't accepted it. And then that was the last I heard about it when I read the article on ESPN. and then it just kind of disappeared. And then all of a sudden, now you have the guy from the Rams getting the job,
Right.
and so with Bill, I don't know, man. I think with Bill, people are still kind of out as to, once Tom left, again, that's Bill. I told Frankie, Bill was his own worst enemy. And I think he got exposed when Tom left because as a GM, he started doing some really crazy stuff, right? Once what's his face left as a Josh McDaniels left as a coordinator, he tried to do the Matt Patricia, the dual role with guys who weren't even offensive coordinators. And of course, that blew up in the face. Then he goes in with Bill O'Brien, still can't do it. Then he's going back and forth between Zappy and this other guy. These are all people that Bill chose, right? This is all created by Bill. So I kind of tend to wonder if he exposed himself a little bit too much for other coaches or other GMs or ownerships to maybe just say, you know what, I don't know if I want to get involved in that because he kind of made a mess over there in New England once Tom left. So I don't know. I still think that's kind of haunting him a little bit.
So you think that it's the way he set up the team after Brady left, who he had in charge as far as
yeah. I think some people are looking at, had there been no Brady, are we really talking about Belichick being one of the greatest coaches? He's been in the league for a long time before Tom. Cleveland, New York, so forth. And he really had no success over at Cleveland. He had a little bit under Parcells in New York, and then of course he goes over and he gets Tom Brady, and then everything just goes from there. So I think there's been some things exposed about Bill that maybe people are leery of, right? I mean, one is again, the track record before Tom, and then the track record after Tom.
Well, if you remember, Jay, he won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants as defensive coordinator. He also went to the Super Bowl with the Patriots as a defensive coordinator. So he did have success. And with the Patriots early, I mean, Tom Brady did not build that great defense they had over there. That was more Belichick than Tom Brady. So, let's give the man his due. Pags, do you agree with Jay? Do you think it's because the way he's handled, the Mac Jones situation, the way he had personnel coaching over it, is that the main reason why he's not being hired?
Nope. I think the main reason why Bill Belichick is not being hired is because of Bill Belichick. I don't think he's really interested in any other job. I think that, honestly, he's almost waiting for the Jets job to open up or the Giants job to open up and is going to go there. I think that's I think that there's only a couple of spots that he wants to be at. And because he only wants to be in a couple of spots, he went and he sniffed Atlanta. And I heard the same thing. I heard that the job was his to lose, and he chose not to take it. So because of that, I feel like that the only reason why Bill Belichick isn't coaching right now is because of Bill Belichick.
Jackie,
I don't know where you guys heard these rumors that he was offered a job with the Falcons. There's no evidence he did. Just because he came back for second interview, that only showed the owner, Arthur Blake, was very interested in him. And there was a point where he was going to be Arthur Blake's guy. But Bill Belichick commands too much power. Most owners do listen to their chain of command. They really do. Even Jerry Jones listens to his chain of command. Because if he didn't, Jerry Jones would have drafted Johnny Manziel, the guy he really wanted. And Arthur Blake was talked out of it. Most of these places like Washington Commanders, they just hired a new GM. Is he going to want to give full control to Bill Belichick? And that's what Bill Belichick basically commands wherever he goes. So GMs prefer to have someone who would work under them, not a power player like Bill Belichick, unless it's an understudy of Bill Belichick's, and they don't mind him having the power because they feel they'll ride his coattails, make a good living, and they'll ultimately be successful. That's
Jack, I would understand a little bit about what you're saying, except for the fact that as a young GM who is coming in there, Bill Belichick says, hey, listen, I want to just coach. I don't want to GM anymore. Obviously, I want to have a little bit of say on who I want on my team, but I don't necessarily want the responsibilities of a GM. So as a young GM, listen, you have a wealth of knowledge and you don't have a longevity with Bill Belichick that you could possibly have with a younger coach. I mean, a younger coach could be there for decades. But Bill Belichick's not going to be there for decades because his age isn't going to allow him. Wouldn't it be something worthwhile to go to the library of Bill Belichick while you have the opportunity for a couple of years, learn some of the stuff that he's got with him so that you can sort of not necessarily steal it, but take that knowledge that he's got and be able to utilize it after he's gone?
Jack, real quick, if I may.
Decades is 12 years, so they're not counting him being there 24, 36 years. But I see your point.
A decade's only 10 years, by the way.
You make a good point with the age factor.
Hey, real quick. According to NBC Sports Boston, despite mutual interest between the two parties, it seems that it may come down to Belichick wanting full control of the organization, something Falcons owner Arthur Blank wasn't comfortable with, according to MMQB's Arthur Breer. So it really came down to they had interest, they wanted him, but Bill wanted to be more than just a coach, and Arthur wasn't going to have that, and that's why Belichick wasn't the coach of the Falcons.
You make a great point, Jay. Belichick may have overplayed his hand this year. Because in the beginning, when all these jobs were open, we thought for sure he'd get one of the jobs. It wasn't even a question. It was a certainty. Bill Belichick was going to be offered a job. So he may have overplayed his hand. And the odds are now that the season's going to start and he's going to be on the outside. And all year long, when any team gets off to a slow start, we're going to hear the rumors about Bill Belichick maybe being the next coach or whatever team that is.
And that's very possible. Let me get to the comments. Good morning, Rick. Glad to see you with us. Paul Waddy, thank you for tuning in today, and thanks for the comments. So I'm going to kind of go with Pags here. I think it's the age. If this was Bill Belichick 10 years ago, he'd have a job already. I think it has. He's 72 years old. He doesn't have a lot of time left. According to a lot of people, it looks like the game has maybe passed them by a little bit. How to deal with the younger players. He's not that. He's an old school coach. He's from the mold of Bill Parcells. That's what he is. And you go there, you do your job, and there's really, I mean, he'll yell at anybody. He'll yell at the superstars. He don't care. He treats everyone equal. And today, that's not what they do today. And somewhat they didn't do it a long time ago either. You got your superstars and you kind of baby them a little bit. I think maybe his age has a lot to do with it, guys. As I said, if Bill Belichick is 10 years younger, I think he gets any job he wants out there right now.
And there was another thing that happened that was kind of quiet, but I happened to hear that I kind of expected was in line exactly with Bill Belichick getting any job. Chip Kelly, a couple weeks ago, when Bill Belichick got let go and was out as a free agent coach, Chip Kelly said, "I'd like to come back to the NFL as a coordinator." Now, I happen to know that Bill Belichick and Chip Kelly are close friends. So it wouldn't have surprised me to think that he was going to be the next offensive coordinator of wherever Bill Belichick was going to land. And it was funny because he said it and it disappeared out in the media. It was just like poof, gone. But I got to imagine that if you have that occurring and you're saying, okay, well, I want this and I want this and I want this and I kind of got this already in place. If you're not on board with that, you're going to be stuck with him for a minute because he does have a very strong personality.
Yeah, he does.
I'm surprised Washington's not going after him.
I think it's going to get to the point when owners going to get fed up and look and say, I listened to my GM, I listened to the people in the organization, I'm going with Bill Belichick. I don't give a darn anymore. Same way I'm referring back to Jerry Jones when he didn't draft Randy Moss because of all the red flags and his people told him not to, and that backfired. So when Des Bryant became available late on with the red flags, he drafted Des Bryant. He said, "The heck with it. I'm not making the same mistake again."
All right. Okay. So let's get to the NFC East. Disappointing year for the NFC East. We thought it would be maybe the strongest out there. It wasn't the weakest, that's for sure, but it wasn't as competitive with getting the playoffs as we thought it would. So there's two teams that made it to the playoffs, the Cowboys and the Eagles, and both had bad showings against their teams in the playoffs. So next year, guys, and this is going to mainly be between Jason and Pags. I know it. Which team has a better shot of coming back and getting that number 1 seed next year? Is it the Eagles or is it the Cowboys?
I'm gonna let Pags. I'm gonna defer. I'm gonna defer the kickoff to Pags. I'll take the second half.
Who said that you won? Who said that you won the coin toss? You can just automatically defer. And so, anyways, I'll be honest with you. I feel that the Eagles do need to solve some problems, and with the hiring of their defensive coordinator, they have, this is the biggest defense, the biggest change with the defense between last year and this year was the wide 9. And the defense that they have been running has been Vic's type of defense. We talked about this on our show, where we, instead of going from the carbon copy now, we have the original. And the issue that I have is that this guy still doesn't know how to spell blitz, but the wide 9 had as close to 72 sacks. I think 72 was the record. I think we got 71, in the season, and we went to the Super Bowl. This year, we get rid of the wide 9, and I think we had like 28 sacks. So big change in that philosophy. I feel that once we going back to that and the defense stopping people, the offense was still scoring points. We just weren't scoring enough points when it came down to it. And although it looked very vanilla, it still put a lot of points on the board, even in the losses. I think that if they fix the defense kind of cost us 3 of the 6 losses, and that you give us those 3 wins, we're the number 1 seed again. At the very least, we are number 1 in the division.
Okay. What do you think, Jay?
I think Pac smokes a lot of drugs. No, seriously. Here's the deal. And I told Pax, and me and Pax have talked about this. It really kind of comes down to how the offseason plays out, right? You can look at the regular season, and Pax will tell you this, and Pax will say, well, a win is a win. And I agree, a win is a win. I don't care if that man's pinky toe touched the out of bounds, and that's why he didn't get that touchdown, which would ultimately give the Cowboys the win on the first meeting. But they lost. No, I know. Hey, trust me, I'm right there with you, but you got lucky. You got lucky because you didn't beat us. He went out, he stepped out of bounds. Truthfully, watch the game. Go back and watch it. But it's okay. We're not gonna. That's a debate for another time.
It happened right in front of me. I know. It's
okay. Pags, I didn't interrupt you. It's a debate for another time. Jack, let's get that on the calendar, please. Here's the thing. Right? Look, you take, and then of course the second one. We got the second win, right? So we did in the regular season. But here's the deal. Like I told Pax and me and Tex, $19 million is where the cap right now. We were above. So Dallas has issues. We got to figure out who we're going to cut, where we're going to cut, and then what's left over to be dealt with. That's number 1. Number 2, you look at what Philly's contending with. Pax hasn't seen a win since what, November? No offense, Pax, but it's true. You guys have sucked for a hot minute. And then you want to talk about coming back and getting first place. You can't even get a win
against the Giants with 2 weeks into the season. See, again, so don't tell me we had a win in December.
On the calendar. We can go all day on that one, and I don't want to win.
Green Bay in the playoffs.
I don't have a mute button. Can somebody hit the mute button, please?
not in the debate, Jay.
But I'm almost done. I'm wrapping it up. But look, guys, Pags has a locker room issue. He has a leadership issue with his field general. We all know it. Jason Kelce may be leaving. They may be losing other players. Who knows? There's a lot going on with that team that they're going to have to sort out, figure out. Dallas has their own cap issues to figure out. The offseason, that's why it's too early for this debate, because you got to see what happens over the offseason. And really, this debate should be 1 week prior to the regular season starting. That way we can make a more informed decision. But as it stands right now, we're still top dog. He still can't get a win. We'll see what happens over the offseason.
For what it's worth, guys, Mac is picking the Giants to win the division. Mac is still gloating over the last game of the season with the Giants when they beat the Eagles. Mac is still gloating.
Oh, I know. Because he only gets to see that once every 86 years. That's like Haley's Comet.
Hey, look, as long as Danny DeVito's cousin is quarterback in that team, Matt can be as delusional as he wants. Let the man be delusional.
I think you all know I wouldn't say anything like that. That's just Jack stirring the pot. Yeah, and it's true. I do save the mute button for Jack. That's the only one I really mute that much on the show. So,
I've been muted before.
Well, yeah, that's when you get carried away. But let me look at both sides here. So, I agree with Jay to a point with the continuity. Dallas has more continuity right now than the Eagles. They're pretty much, unless Quinn gets hired, they're going to have the same coaches. They pretty much are going to have the same players. Philadelphia has again changed coaching staffs, and not that they're not going to have all year to work on it. I know they will. I do agree with him. Also with Jalen Hurts, I think Jalen Hurts was a big disappointment to a lot of Eagle fans this year, the way he handled himself. But Bags has a point also. Listen, Dallas Cowboys, for some reason, during the year, and when they get into the playoffs, they always lose, Jay. I mean, Philadelphia was just.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Philly was just in the Super Bowl not a year ago. So I mean, I can see from both sides, but I'm not sure which team I hate worse, the Eagles or the Cowboys. But listen, I think the Giants have a shot next year to make a little run here. I don't think they'll take first place again. I don't think they'll do that, but I think they have a chance to be competitive with these two teams next year. They were competitive this year. With Dallas' first game, no, but after that, they were.
I think the Eagles are a lot more unpredictable than the Cowboys. We know what we're going to get with the Cowboys next year. Maybe they go 13-4. Worst case scenario, they go 9-8. They'll probably be around 11-6 or thereabouts. The Eagles are so unpredictable. Maybe they bounce back and they'll be a 14-3 team, or maybe the roof is caved in on the Eagles and they'll be 5-12 next year. I can see a complete collapse for the Eagles. I can see a Super Bowl contender. They're a team that's a lot more in the extreme than the Dallas Cowboys. A lot more answers we need for the Eagles. And the Eagles, the age factor too. Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey. I mean, they're getting on a little in age, and that's the heart of the team. And Jalen Hurts too. Did we overrate him a little bit because he had a great year the year before last? Okay, this past season, is this the real Jalen Hurts? And he was still good. Don't get me wrong. The offensive line was awful, but on paper it looked good for the Eagles. If you look at the players, they had the personnel and the dissension in the Eagle locker room. Let's not forget during the loss to Tampa Bay in the playoffs, Jalen Hurts is sitting there all alone, sulking. No one is coming up to him except Goddard, who's yelling at him. He's not going and trying to rally the players the way a Dak Prescott does with his guys on the Cowboys. The Eagles, they were dysfunctional all of a sudden. There was a lot of dissension, and it got covered up early in the year. They won a lot of close games, and we were thinking because the Eagles was still an elite team, that's why they were continuing to win, and we didn't see the red flags.
I agree. I think with those Eagles, at the very beginning, they were dominant. I was telling Frank, I was like, man, this Eagles team is scary, man. I really see this team going a long, long way. And then right about that last 2 months of the season, something went on in that damn locker room. I don't know what happened. Pags, we've kind of alluded what could possibly have happened, but something happened in that damn locker room that last 2 months that fractured that team and really just, made them look completely 180 from what we saw, that in that first half of the season.
All right, so it sounds like I'm ready to jump back in here again. You're right. I can't explain. The honesty is that the season kind of happened on its own. All the games that we were winning in the very beginning that we would edge out or grit out to get those wins, we didn't win at the end of the season. And all the games, every single game was exactly the same as every other game just about. Minus, obviously, the 49ers beat us. Dallas beat us the second time. But every other, and the Giants maybe the very last game of the season. Every other game was exactly the same, that it was always close. And the first 11 games or the first 10 games, the 10 wins, the Eagles were able to get over the hump and win those games. In those last 6 games, they weren't. And that they were scoring points, but you let Arizona come back and you let them beat us. We let Drew Lock look like Joe Montana for the last 2 minutes and do the drive and go down and beat us. Those wins by those other teams really affected you. And like I said, when you're winning those games early in the season, you start to feel a little bit differently about it. At the end of the season, when you're losing those games, it shows a different side of you.
Well, Jay, you know, you guys still got a problem with Dak Prescott over there, and whether, you know, why the players aren't standing up and why the owners aren't standing up for him amongst all these family squabbling, saying that's my quarterback, blah, blah, blah. And so, you know, there's still problems over there in Dallas too. I mean, does Dak Prescott come back? Does he go somewhere else? I know he has a non-franchise tag clause in there, a no trade clause. So he pretty much has that sewed up. But your quarterback is facing some issues over there right now too. So, you know, with all this disarray, if it's not straightened out by the beginning of the year, Giants will be competitive with you guys. And yes, they will have a chance if they lose Barkley. Not as good, of course, because Barkley is a great back. But anyway, let's get to the next question. The four coaches, Jack, who is the best coach left in these championship games?
I mean, you have to look at the track record. It's Andy Reid, 6 AFC championship games in a row, went to a Super Bowl previously with the Eagles. And the players buy in with Andy Reid. He seems to have the respect of the locker room. And I don't see how you cannot say Andy Reid. Kyle Shanahan, very good coach with the Niners, but he's got to get over the top. If they don't get over the top this year, the Niners, his coaching resume is going to be kind of put into question. Dan Campbell, great motivator, rah-rah guy. You can't put Dan Campbell in the class of Andy Reid or John Harbaugh, underrated coach. If the Ravens win the Super Bowl this year, that's going to be his second one. And when we talk about the great coaches in the NFL, all of a sudden his name is going to join the discussion if the Ravens win the Super Bowl. But for now, Andy Reid's body of work clearly makes him number one.
Well, this is a debate show, Jay, so give me somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Truthfully, you could make a case, for all four of these guys. All four of these guys in their own right have done amazing things. Kyle Shanahan, the way he's able to utilize his weapons in various degrees and strategies, is incredible the way he does it. You look at Dan Campbell. We were never talking about Detroit until that man got there. Literally, not even close to even being on the radar. If anything, they were the laughing stock or one of the laughing stocks. And what he's done with the culture, I don't think Jack even gives him an inch of the credit that he really deserves.
Could I just say
Now, Jack, I need you to do this, and but I need you to relax for a second. Just calm down. I need you to understand there are two coaches that really have impacted the club in a very specific way. DeMeco Ryans was the other one. Dan Campbell, guys that can change a culture, that can get the most out of their talent, that can are good at the play calling aspect, and he's done that. He's done it in a lot of different ways. So, and again, you can look at Harbaugh. Look what Harbaugh's done with this team since day one when he first came out there with Trent Dilfer and got the first Super Bowl, and how he's kept that defense on par. I really believe this, truthfully, is probably one of the best.
Flacco.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Also had Dilfer, no, actually, you're right. Billick had Dilfer. I apologize. I think I went too far back. But either way, you're right. I think he came in the Flacco generation. But either way, he still got, even with him, he got a damn Super Bowl, right? But that team, I think this is the most complete Ravens team I have seen as of yet. The offense is now just as good as the defense on both sides of the ball, and they are one of the scarier teams, right? I think the way they've developed Lamar Jackson to where now he sees his second and third reads rather than just the one read or run the ball 24/7 is a long way for improving that guy, right? So you can make a case for all of these guys. But I am going to rock the Dan Campbell man right now. I'm going to roll that because I like what he's done. I think there's not a lot of coaches out there that could take a situation from zero and make it a hero, where they are literally, we're making plausible things where they could actually beat the 49ers, which we know how good the 49ers are. Right, so I'm going to rock with Dan Campbell. I understand he doesn't have the pedigree in terms of Super Bowl accomplishments that Andy Reid has, which I love Andy Reid, by the way. But what he's done with that team, not a lot of people can do. That's a very hard thing to do, and I'm still curious to see where they go. And if he gets the Super Bowl this year by some kind of way, I mean, it's just amazing. So I'm going to rock with Dan Campbell on that.
What do you think, Pags? Who's the best coach left right now?
I mean, honestly, I still, Andy Reid has got the pedigree, but Harbaugh is from the Andy Reid tree, so, and I kind of like that. You know what I mean? It's like I feel like this is the student going to be teaching the master this weekend. I'm so excited for the Detroit Lion fan base. With this Dan Campbell thing, and I hope that the rah-rah is enough to be able to beat San Francisco. And I feel that, interestingly enough, that Shanahan, in the biggest of moments, starts to crumble a little bit, starts to get a little nervous a little bit. We saw it last year in the NFC Championship game. He was losing his mind because there was nothing he could do. And ultimately, if the Lions were able to get out on a little bit of a lead, I kind of feel the same thing is going to happen, that in the biggest of pressures, that Shanahan starts to fold. So I take him off the list. Dan Campbell, we don't know yet. I mean, he took a team last year. They missed the playoffs literally by 1 point, to Seattle, and still went out there and made sure Aaron Rodgers' last game was a loss. And before he went to the Jets.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for that. I mean, like I said, Andy Reid has already got the pedigree. He's a Hall of Fame coach. I think John Harbaugh cements his Hall of Fame this year by beating Andy Reid and winning the Super Bowl.
A couple things, Pags. Shanahan was pulling his hair out because he just lost his starting quarterback and his second string quarterback, and all he had there was McCaffrey, who really isn't a quarterback. So.
Yeah, but you can't go nuts as a coach on the sideline when you listen. You got to still hold. They were still in the game at any point. I know they didn't have a quarterback, and I know that they were getting their butts beat at the time. But listen, you got to still. You're the coach of a team. You can't be frantic, and that's what happened. He became frantic, just like all the other times that they have lost.
I think
he gets
was more
frantic.
I think he was more concerned, and I totally disagree with you. I think Shanahan is maybe the best coach of these four coaches. His running schemes are unbelievable. The way that defense, the defense performs. I mean, he took Deebo Samuels, who was a wide receiver coming up, and made him into a hybrid receiver / running back. McCaffrey, the holes running that he runs through.
Yeah, but do you remember what it was like without McCaffrey?
Do
you remember what it's like without McCaffrey?
He won. He went to the playoffs championship almost every year. I think the last 4 years, even without McCaffrey being there.
I think that was when he had Mostert and Wilson.
Exactly.
Right?
And right now, Kittle may be the best tight end in the league right now. I mean, the way they flood the zones, the way they get people open one-on-one, even when it's not one-on-one. I mean, this man knows how to coach. And yeah, he's not as big as Andy Reid. He hasn't been around as long as these other coaches. Campbell's the only one that's been around a lot less. But, man, this dude
There's not many people in the world as big as Andy Reid.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
That's true.
But listen.
And he has the best commercials.
Yes, he does. But as far as coaching goes, I don't think anybody outcoaches Kyle Shanahan. I think he has some bad breaks, having a quarterback that really wasn't Super Bowl caliber. Well, another one that may not be a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. But, man, you can put almost any quarterback in there, and that team is successful. That's how good of a coach he is. He doesn't depend on Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't depend on Jared Goff. He doesn't depend on a quarterback. He has a whole scheme. Pags, you could go in there and win with the San Francisco 49ers as a quarterback.
I think one of the biggest things for me that I take away from the San Francisco 49ers is their versatility. The way you can interchange players and still have an amazing team, right? Like you said, you can have Debo run the ball. You can have Debo do some kind of misdirection. You can have McCaffrey be, like you said, the wide out, tight end, running back, quarterback, whatever. Just the amount of interchangeable parts. And you never know. Like it opens up his strategy levels to where you're constantly guessing which guy's going to be the guy because you don't know because of them being able to do so many different things and the way they can hide what they're going to do.
Right.
Yeah, but I look at that more as Lynch. As much as I don't like him
John
either.
Lynch. Right.
But John Lynch was the architect on bringing in all of this talent. And they have a lot of talent. That's there's no denying that. So I blame that more on Lynch bringing in the people. The reason why he's got so much versatility is because they have the right pieces in place. You have McCaffrey, which really you got for a bag of donuts, which was amazing. You know what I mean? Yeah. I wish I could.
They gave up 3 meaningful draft choices, not a first round. But
do you think that they were upset about that?
I think
not a little bit.
Yeah,
not a little bit.
Yeah,
I would say Pags. I think that's 50-50. John Lynch. I think it's 50-50. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan because just because you had the talent, and we've seen this, just because you had the talent, don't mean you know how to use the talent.
Exactly.
And you still got to call the. You still got to
wait 1 second. Even though this is a good debate question, it's a fair debate question. We're going to know so much more after Sunday because if the 49ers lose, we're really going to be singing the praises of Kyle Shanahan as being a great coach. If the Lions lose decisively to the Niners, we're going to say Dan Campbell did a nice job, but we're not going to compare him.
Hey, that's why I say, you know what? I'm going to know a hell of a lot more come 24 hours.
Andy Reid's legacy is set no matter what. Yeah, John Harbaugh has a very good legacy, but to have a really great legacy, he needs that other Super Bowl. So we're going to know a lot more, but let's not get carried away with Kyle Shanahan. I think he's an excellent coach, don't get me wrong. But the Niners have to get it done this year because if they lose to the Lions, we're not going to be rating Kyle Shanahan as highly later on as we're doing on this show right now.
It depends why they lose. If it's from a phone.
I think, Jack, you were right though. How do you win? How do you win without a quarterback? Literally, if they'd have had Purdy the entire game, would we even be talking about this? You can't put. You can't put last year on Shanahan or any of that because he lost the
I'm not. It wasn't Shanahan. The Eagles obviously had it. I mean, the Niners had a very unusual situation last year. Shanahan's an excellent coach, but I'm saying for his legacy, he's got to get the Niners over the top at one point, win a Super Bowl to be compared to the other great coaches. How can you put Shanahan on a level with an Andy Reid or John Harbaugh if he doesn't win a Super Bowl at some point?
And I guess my question at all, is Shanahan on any level won a ring? I know he hasn't won it as a coach. I know he hasn't won it as a coordinator because they lost to the Patriots. Has he won a ring on any level?
There's something to be said for that. His dad won a couple of Super Bowls.
His dad. Bronco coach. Did he work with his dad? I don't know if he worked with his dad.
I'm not sure.
If he was on the staff. If he was on the staff with his dad, he did. But if he wasn't, then he didn't. But again, to me, talent-wise, at the quarterback position right now, listen. He doesn't have Mahomes. He doesn't have these great. He doesn't have Lamar Jackson. He has a very good quarterback that, again, the team is not built around a quarterback. The quarterback is kind of a piece that's thrown in around the team and the scheme. So that's the only reason why I give them the edge. They're all great. Jack's right. They're all great. And as far as knowing, after the game, there wouldn't be a debate then. We would know. So that's not a debate question. So anyway, Folks, we're getting close to the top of the hour here. Couple announcements tomorrow. The Big Football Show. Jay, you're on for the Big Football Show tomorrow, correct? With us, you coming in
tomorrow's Sunday, and I won't be able to make that. Well, what time are you guys doing the show?
9 a.m. It'd be 8 a.m. your time that you would have to come in.
Yeah, no, I can be 8. I could be on tomorrow at 8.
All right, so we'll have Jay McLovin. We'll also have Mike the Bear Fan, a new show out on our Roku channel. He'll be coming in, and we'll be talking about, of course, Justin Fields and the Bears with him, and maybe Jay will stick around and Justin will help us do our 2 picks tomorrow on the championship game. Of course, Pags will be there, Keith Angle, Jim Jeffco, Sonia.
Mr. Undefeated last week.
Very good.
4-0. So far in these playoffs, I've only lost 1 game.
A lot of guys are right behind you, Pags, at 3-1.
Yeah, but I've only lost 1 game so far.
Well, I think I know you're going to pick, so you're going to lose another one tomorrow. We'll see. Anyway,
we'll see.
So the Big Football Show tomorrow. Of course, stay on the Roku channel all day. Keith Angle will be up next, and we have a bunch of shows lined up for you as we do. Great shows all day, every day. Thanks, Jay, for coming in. Appreciate you coming in. Always livens up the debate, and always Pags too. Jack always with me. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Have a great Saturday. Stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Big Football Show. Have a great